Good Tuesday morning to you as we come to you live. The morning radio show for PT business owners. Today, we're going to get into how to create viral content. Can you do it on purpose? Is there a formula? Can you get close? We'll dig into that. Plus, we're going to look at pricing strategy. Could you actually be doing it completely wrong? Is there a better way to do it? We think so. This is PT Breakfast Club. Good morning to Dave and Tony. Gentlemen, good Tuesday morning to you.
Good morning. So guys, I know you've been asking. I am in my clinic right now. Let me flip this around. So here we go. This is one of my two physical therapy clinics. We've talked about this before. I'm expecting a big delivery later today from Biodex. So I came in early, but imagine you're a patient, you're working out, you're doing all this stuff. Here's the Harley that I've mentioned on the podcast before. This is my 883 Harley Sportster, good old patriotic American flag. Got the saddlebags, got the back seat for my woman. But it's just part of the clinic. Like patients come in and they're like, why is there a motorcycle parked in your clinic? And I was like, because where else am I going to put it? I can't put it in my house. So there you go. I wanted to show you guys because we talked about that months ago.
Do you ever use it like functionally? Like, hey, let's see if we can get someone back and swing their leg over and they have the hip range of motion. And
I have had patients sit on it. Patients who I've got a gentleman actually. He came in about a month ago. He used to do cross-country motorcycle rides, and he got on it. But other than that, from a liability perspective, no.
Smart. Tony, let's just get you a little closer to the camera just so we can hear you a little bit better. All right. So we've sort of pitched. Yeah. Go ahead, Dave. You're going to say something.
I was just going to say, Tony, first of all, thank you for showing us that. It's incredible. Yeah. Probably the only owner in the country that has any type of motorcycle in their clinic. And then you tease that you had a big delivery coming. You said from Biodex, but Jimmy and I could have assumed that it was either a sidecar or maybe you were getting another Harley delivered to the clinic. We don't know.
We don't know.
It costs just about as much, but no, it's called the Biodex Reactive Step Trainer. It's a balance trainer from a treadmill, all this crazy cool stuff. So I will share content as it gets delivered and I start to use it.
Yeah, Scott, I've been waiting for that too. So giving the viewers what they want this morning on a podcast. So let's toss this out there. Tony, you gave us like a little bit of homework to do last night when I was wrapping up dinner. I threw a YouTube video on that you shared, and it was really about, can we structure or can we reverse engineer virality? Can you why'd you share that? What'd you want us to learn from that?
Well, Dave can introduce Nick. You follow Nick Huber more than I do. But we've all talked about like how to capture attention, the value of attention, how, you're not trying to be friends with everybody. You want to kind of solidify your audience. And so, Dave, tell us a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was just cutting out. I don't know if it's my side or your side. So Nick Huber, he's an entrepreneur. He's got a couple of different podcasts and social media accounts. One of the main ones is called Sweaty Startup. So he advocates for, the service-based businesses. He owns a bunch of storage businesses called Bolt Storage, and they're buying the mom and pop storage companies, and then they're adding technology and, keyless entry and cameras and all that type of stuff. So they're growing a chain of Bolt Storage locations. And then he also, I think, recently bought this company called Support Shepherd, which does like virtual assistant, offshore help for employees and some other companies. But anyway, as a sidebar, I don't know when, he started this in the last couple of years, but he would specifically write tweets and posts and things online I think more so on Twitter, but he also does it on Instagram. And, you know, he's a good follow, by the way, on Instagram, because he'll talk right into the camera. He'll be like hiking, like with his son on like the backpack, the front or the back, whatever. So he's like carrying one of his younger sons or whatever. And he's hiking and he's like, oh, I had this like business thought. And like, he just starts talking to the camera, similar to like the way Tony and I have done like reels and clips and things like that. So, what he does on Twitter is he specifically will comment something that's polarizing. So for example, I'm not gonna say it verbatim, but one of the posts or tweets that he did that was popular was him saying something along the lines of like, it's better to have the virtual assistant offshore type help. You can have full-time workers that are hungry, that are motivated, and they're happy with the pay that they get through Support Shepherd. And it's something like $9,000 a year or something. So it's very low. It saves business owners money. And then he kind of would talk down on other potential employees in the country that like don't want to do that job, or they, you can't pay someone to do that type of stuff at that dollar amount. And so that would get polarizing responses online, right? So people would be like, what about America and America first and all that? And some people would be like, yeah, it makes sense. And, I want to save money and pay virtual assistants that live in, other countries. I forget South America or where he gets his talent from. But nonetheless, he does have a formula. We should definitely get into it. And he will specifically write about polarizing topics. Like Tony said, it kind of filters in and out the audience. So like half the audience is going to get annoyed with it. And then half the audience is going to, rah, rah, cheer, and agree with it. And that's exactly what he posts and the style and kind of like the reason behind it.
Yeah, and Jimmy's always sharing information about like this did well, this didn't do so well. What are you guys thinking about this? So what are your thoughts, Jimmy?
I feel seen because this plays to my inner personality. So I think I mentioned this before. I took a personality test a couple of years ago, and it tells you a lot of things. It's like astrology. It tells you a lot of things you already know about it yourself. And then it tells you one little nugget that you're like, wait, really? So the wait, really thing for me was my leading personality trait from this Strengths Finders test is woo, even more than communication or ideation or innovation, things I wanted to be known for. It means you need people to like you. And that's like great, right? Because it means I'll hunt after you and I'll overserve you. It could also mean that I'll just do anything to make you like me. And that's not good. That's a weakness. So what I've done, and when I've seen success, I've taken a stand on one side or the other. But most of the time, I'm in the middle. So when this thing came out, I was like, oh my gosh, like I am doing the thing that I tell other people not to do. And I'm just doing it because I want everybody to like me. So this formula is very clear. I even sat down and I was like paying attention to all the things I'd retweeted from other people in the last 48 hours. And none of them were, surprisingly, guys, and you're going to be shocked by this, none of them were mediocre. None of them were mayonnaise. None of them were lukewarm. They were either hot or cold. They were not in the middle. So as soon as I saw this, I was like, well, yeah, duh. But I was doing the opposite. So saying one thing and doing another. And then I took a shot at it. We can get into this too. I took a shot at it last night. I played around with an idea just so I'd have something to talk about this morning. I took a stand, probably not on something as crazy or polarizing, but I just wanted to see if I could make something moderately off center sort of react well. And it outperformed my last couple of tweets by like 1,000%.
Wow. So last night, yesterday, I shared, and I don't know if you guys saw it. It was a quote from Medicare where, everybody talks about Medicare and how you can't see more than one patient, more than one beneficiary at a time, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And so I said, look, here's a quote from Medicare, one-on-one therapy, basically in a group. And you can have one patient from this block to this block and a second patient and a third patient. And while you're seeing the first patient, the second and third are doing these other things. And it was published by Medicare. And this truly speaks to like my personal biases, my passion. I love working with patients in this manner. I like small groups. I like having people come through. I said, look, you get better outcomes, you get double or triple the profitability. And of course, I know that I'm publishing that to a community of therapists who left, quote, busy clinics, mill clinics, to do just one-on-one for an hour. So I know I'm going to get engagement from that. I know I'm going to get feedback. And that's kind of part of this formula. Now, it's not just about saying inflammatory things, because
Right.
that's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a fight. The idea here is, and I've said this, I want to get a voice out there that's not being expressed right now, that I genuinely believe is accurate, is true. I am a therapist who likes doing this, because there's somebody out there who hears that message and it resonates with them, even though it goes against what everybody else is saying right now. And so I think those are the ones that have gotten the most traction. Those are the ones that people will read and process, and then they'll respond to or reshare it or tweet it or whatever. And of course, it's not just peer-to-peer. It's not professional. It can also be you to the patient. So when I tell the public, you don't have to sleep on your back with your legs straight after you had a knee replacement, that goes against everything that everyone is saying. But I provide context around that. And that was the first video that blew up for me and got my YouTube channel going, because it was opposite of the conventional wisdom, but it was fully justified in why I said it.
Yeah. So we'll call this this is called a pattern disrupt, which is if everybody's going left, you only have to go right this much to be this much of a disruptor. You'll have to do a little bit. Dave, chime in.
Like a contrarian view. Like you offered a different way to look at things. Every single surgeon and PA and the whole medical office is telling the patient, like, you can't sleep with a pillow under your knee and you have to sleep supine. And then you offer a piece of video content that has the background and the justification, but like you said, it's something different, almost the opposite. And so, of course, it would, blow up, and people probably saved it and shared it. And, that kind of resulted in it being a popular video for you.
But it also reminds me, so I've got 4 boys. The little brother is like the classic little brother. He's always poking. He's always prodding. He's always trying to get his older brothers fired up. And so it's the same thing. I also know, and I feel some weird joy in it, poking and prodding those therapists out there that get so upset and so crazy about the things that I say that they're just going to respond with a mile-long response that's just going to feed the algorithm, get me more follows, get me more information, and push my message, which they completely disagree with, out to a bigger community. There is this weird perverse.
It's also this idea of people will use the term social media as a verb. Like, do you do social media? And I love this. And I'll say, because I work with organizations and they're like, help us. Can you do the social media for us? I'm like, well, it's not a verb. But I could create media that is social. And I think we forget that. And we talked about this like on a live stream last week, which was people try to use these platforms as advertising platforms. They get on there and they can't wait to tell you all the things that they're doing or they've done and what they're about to do so you can do something. The you comes last. Here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want. Where I think if you give someone a different viewpoint, people either want to scream hallelujah. I mean, once a week, people go to these big, tall buildings and they want to be given something to say amen to. But they're swimming in a sea of sameness everywhere else as they're just scrolling and they're just watching other people talk about themselves. It's the people that do what that video you shared with us last night, and we can put it in the comments below as well. It's just a well done video because they just go through and they tactically show why this guy's tweets went viral, and he just sort of simply explains it. You don't need to be an engineer to figure out why the things he was doing started to spread. He didn't do social media. He does media that's social. And that's a difference.
So for the audience, can you get into the video a little bit with Nick Huber? Because I didn't get a chance to listen to it. I'm sure it's similar to the other stuff that he's talked about with like the tactics or examples, or I kind of gave some one example, but like, is there anything else that was like jumping out of that video that would help the audience with creating some type of content ideas or strategy that will get more buzz or attention?
So Tony, let's go back and forth and just like throw out things that stood out, right? And this is like a book report that we didn't prepare, right? So I'll show on the screen what I took from that video, and then I wrote one. So here's what I wrote. We'll go line by line. I wrote, my brutal truth about physical therapy. keep in mind the purpose of a first date, a pickup line is to get the first date. Purpose of the first date is to get the second date. It's not to get married. So that first line wasn't to go viral. The first line was to get you to read the second line. So my brutal truth about physical therapy, I use an emotion there. If you're a physical therapist, you wonder which way I'm going right now, right? It sounds trite. It sounds small. I needed you to get to stop. And I think he threw out a stat. I don't know if it was true or not, but he said you have about 0.8 seconds to get someone's attention before they blow by you. 0.8, less than a second, right? That's not a knock on people's attention span. That's a knock on how much attention they have versus how much content. So the first lesson I took away was like, give someone something, give them knowledge scent. That's what organizational psychologists would call this, knowledge scent. That sentence said, hey, there's something juicy coming after this. If you were about to tell a friend some gossip, you would say something a certain way. That's what I attempted with this first line, was my brutal truth about physical therapy. So the first lesson I took was pay attention to the first thing you say. If it's not worth their time, they will not give it to you.
And I love that you used the word brutal. That was the first thing that I noticed when you shared that post, and I reshared that post. The only thing I think that would have been nice would have been an image, and I go back to the post that I shared on LinkedIn about OT going to a DOT, having that image of the car crash ahead and your hands on the steering wheel. I feel like an image would have just put it over the top a little bit more to stop the scroll and catch the attention.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Keep going through yours.
I think also understanding what game you're playing, right? I'm playing an attention game, and I got yelled at a few times on social media last week, a couple weeks ago, when I said, understand that the first thing you need to do, if you're a PT clinic, you're actually a marketing company that happens to monetize with physical therapy, right? Someone else backed up, I think it was Joey Albritton, said something about being a real estate and a recruiting company on top of a marketing company. I mean, like, these are all different skill sets. So if you're not hiring for them, you better be good at it. So after my first sentence, I wanted to say something sort of inflammatory. I wanted to give it context. So after my brutal truth about physical therapy, I wrote, if they, in quotes, don't see your value, it's your fault. And your fault was all in caps because I wanted to scream it at everybody. And this is jarring because people hate being put on blast if they don't feel like this is an altruistic profession. People do everything for the good of others. And I wanted to point a finger and say, it's your fault. You're to blame. Tell me you're not going to pay attention if someone points at you and says, this is your fault. The immediate thing you're going to do is go, oh, what did I do? What did I do? So again, I wanted to elicit another emotion, which is pointing at someone and scolding them. I wanted to incite attention.
Yeah. And I think it did it. Looking at that next sentence, I think you're directing it at me, the reader, and either I'm going to say, yeah, he's right, I'm guilty of that, or I'm going to say, what an idiot, that's crazy, I can't believe he would say that. Dave, what were you going to say?
So this is great, Jimmy. This is the first step of you, I think, potentially navigating,
admitting you have a problem.
Yeah, because the Nick Huber approach results in the tweet that I kind of did, which is like, I literally took his approach, and that's where that came from. And so it was way more polarizing. And your post is not, in my opinion, but it's the first step in differentiating your normal content where you're the nice guy for both sides or all the sides all the time. And no one has any issue with you until recently when Dave Grams and some of these other people are calling you out because you have a big platform. But other than that, a lot of the content, you're interviewing different folks, different backgrounds, all that over the years. And this would be maybe you're kind of dipping your toe in, kind of seeing what's the water temperature. Let me check this out a little bit.
This is a 4. I think if you really want to get virality, I think your bicep picture was probably like an 8. You know what I mean? It was pretty bold, but you weren't attacking someone's religion, sex, politics, right? You weren't going after the things you don't talk about in a bar. we were sort of like where I think yours was a little more viral is you were talking about body, right? I was just talking about like your profession, which gets people's attention, right? Because they identify with their profession. So if we keep going, I think Dave's right. Like this is like great. Like this is check your homework and like see where you could have done better and like how do you improve. The rest of that post was you're stuck talking about features, manual therapies, modalities, blah blah blah. No one cares. People want results, outcomes, transformation. So I think the topic that I picked was all right. I think it was a 4 or 5 out of 10 in terms of like, could it be a little bit risque? I think I could have went further, and I did this morning, and I'll check it in a second before we move on to topics. But I looked at this and said, these guys are going to tell me to try again, pick a little bit of a different topic and push a little more, put a little more hot sauce and less mayonnaise, and we'll check in with that one. But I picked our profession ending or being absorbed by another profession. So I feel like that's a little more risque. It's like, wait a minute, you're going to tell me the thing I've worked for my entire life is just one day not going to exist, but I back it up with reasoning. And I want you to come at me. This is a hill I'm going to die on. Somebody already did. They said, are you just saying this for hyperbole and for clicks? And I backed it up with artificial intelligence. I actually gave ChatGPT my argument and the AI agreed with me. So the idea is like, figure out the edges. I think it was Gary V's like, go to your local supermarket and count how many types of mayonnaise there are, and then go down the aisle a little further and see how many hot sauces there are. Mayonnaise is in the middle of the bell curve. That's where safe is. And I know I'm guilty of it. Being safe feels safe. It's actually risky. Be on the edge with your ideas.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I saw that post about PT, was it PT, OT, and maybe PA combining.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Like immediately that excites me because I'm like, yes, somebody needs to do this, create a new profession, just blend all of those things together. Even just the idea of PT and OT being separate. Like, why don't we just bring PT, OT, ATC, all of it together into one profession? So like, I think that resonates, makes me excited, makes other people defensive, but it's a great message. And it goes back to like what I said before about restoration therapists. Like there are no restoration therapists anymore. So it's not far-fetched to think there won't be physical therapists anymore.
Right. So here we go, live tweeting. And I like this guy a lot. His name is David Poulter. And I'll zoom in just a little bit. He's responding to this we just talked about. And he was saying, I understand this, me saying that essentially we're all just going to be physiatrists. That's the only thing that's going to be left. And he quoted it with some research, which is what I love. And the research came from the 80s. It says the problem facing physiotherapists in the 80s revolved around their credibility as a professional group. And so David was just saying, I understand this, but it's been the state of play since 29 years ago. And my response is, what was reimbursement in 1980? And what was a PT degree? What did a PT degree cost in 1980? So there's the difference, right? So again, we're just your goal.
Live tweeting. I love this thing. Love this.
Get someone to think, right? But staying in the middle and just running around in circles. I mean, we talk about this silo, right? Running around and patting each other on the back and then saying insurance companies suck. Yeah. You can get people to bond around that, but it doesn't get you anywhere running around in that silo. Look at someone like Danny Mattei, like did not sugarcoat his book, Fuck Insurance. Like in 2 words, he told you exactly what he thinks and he's going the other way. And I don't think Danny could have written a book that was like, insurance is super bad, we should move away from it, and here's how. Like, no, that's mayonnaise. Danny went with hot sauce.
So that's the point, and I agree, which is he knew up front, like that's going to really attract some therapists, and it's really going to repel other therapists. And the same thing with my tweet that I told you guys, 96 or something thousand views at this point, the bicep one, because again, it talked about, like you said, the body and charging out of pocket and a premium dollar amount for physical therapy and that whole thing. So up front, before I even tweeted that, I knew that was going to do the same thing as Danny's book. I knew that I was going to get support. And by the way, I only tagged like Bo Babenko and Josh Funk. Some of these other viral tweets, they tag as many people as possible to try to juice it. I only tagged a couple buddies. I knew it was going to attract the cash-based therapists that were going to agree with me. And then it was also going to repel and annoy and irritate, I thought, 60 to 75% of the therapists on Twitter. And so there you go. Now with your post, Jimmy, I don't think, like, and I don't know, you tell me, like, I feel like before you hit post on that, like, you have to kind of think like, is this going to attract the Tony Maritatos of the world? Is this going to repel or attract the Dave Kittles of the world? Like, who is this? You almost have to have like, you have to know the reaction, I think, before you post it, like which 2 sides or 3 sides, whatever it is, like who is this going to attract and repel?
Yeah, this goes along the lines of my thought process whenever I work on a communications project, which is the first question. People want to rush to, how are we going to share this? Where are we going to put it? What kind of video we're going to make? And I think they asked the wrong question. The number one question needs to be who? Who am I making this for? And the answer cannot and should not be you, because my boss said I have to do a post a day, or because I feel like I need to be on social. That's cool. The answer needs to be who. Who are you educating, entertaining, annoying, infuriating, all the ing words? Who are you doing this for? And then what will ruffle their feathers in a good way? Because you have to earn their attention if you want them to pay attention and spend time. Pay and spend because you want attention and time.
And then obviously the last element to this, I think, is you can't just be one of those people who generates lots of attention and doesn't do anything behind it. Like the 3 of us have proven track records. We've accomplished things. Like we are all doing stuff. So even for me, when I'm, hang on one sec. I'm going to step out just a minute.
Cliffhanger.
Maybe he's going to go kickstart the bike. I think what this does is it's going to put more importance on actually being thoughtful, right? I think if you look at a video from 10 years ago on YouTube that has 60,000 views, you're like, that was a really valuable video. And you look at the video then and you're like, it's got nothing. It's because it was the Wild West. There were tumbleweeds on YouTube. Putting anything on YouTube 15 years ago, and you were going to get, 2% of YouTube's traffic, and that's fantastic. So I think as an online world gets more and more crowded, like 5 years ago, Dave, if I had turned to you and said, I think your business, Concierge Pain Relief, should have its own podcast, you'd be like, that is a crazy waste of time. And it would have been then. But I think now you can see as a podcast is a vehicle for, we've talked about this before, even if no one listens to it, you've had 15 conversations in 15 episodes, that could be 15 relationships. I wish I understood the value of podcasting back when I started podcasting, although I sort of did just because I did 1,600 episodes, but really I did it for sort of a reason, which was have conversations, learn stuff, and you actually get to share. But that was it, right? Like there's the secret sauce, which is, what is the point of this? I was just super excited to have conversations. The audience in my case was, this is what I get to come along and learn with. Did someone steal your motorcycle?
No. That's the reality of broadcasting live from the clinic.
I like it. Dave, what were you going to say?
So the idea of a practice having a podcast, like you see it more and more. Like I can't remember names. Maybe Tracy Scher, the pelvic therapist down in Florida, and other therapists like that. I would say it's a great idea. Actually, we've been considering it, and I've been considering it because there's a few physicians, and one is kind of like a buddy at this point that's a podiatrist in the city, and he refers to physical therapists. He's even posted physical therapy content on his own Instagram account, maybe because he doesn't have his own content. So then I'm thinking I could just do videos with him. I could just do Zoom, whatever. I can pay Nate or someone else to chop it up and make a video thing. And there's a couple things why would I even do that? I wouldn't track the dollar amount that I'm paying someone to edit and record or whatever, but I would be able to just do calls like this with physicians, with potential referral partners, with nursing agencies. There's concierge nursing companies, all that. Build relationships, record the conversations. They can have the content. I'll post the content. They can share it if they want to. We're going to share it. It goes online. Who knows what can happen then, right? It's going to get other potential referral sources and physicians that want to get and want to be in the spotlight, right? Tony's done this, PT Spotlight. We can talk about it in a second. Speaking of referring physicians and just asking them hey, what do you specialize in? Who's your ideal patient? What's your favorite procedure? Or tell me a wild anonymous story of a previous patient that when, I don't know, yelled in your clinic, whatever, funny stuff or whatever, then that might attract more referral sources to you. It might attract new patients because potential patients in your community see that and they're like, oh, here's the doctor that I know, but I don't know this physical therapy practice. Right. and then the trust immediately gets shifted over to you. Potentially you have new candidates, new therapists that are looking at your practice. They're thinking about applying to your practice. They go online, they're like, oh, look, they're interviewing other physicians and PAs and DOs and whatever. It could have so many positive trickle-down effects. And so since I've seen the power of this, of the video that we do, the podcast, the show that I have, the Dave Kittle Show, and all the other things kind of come after that, I could see the positive benefits of that. So we're certainly considering it, even though I know you just threw it out, Jimmy, like, hey, if a practice had a podcast, and I'm thinking like,
right,
we should actually be doing some video.
The fastest way to get a bunch of PTs to pay attention to them is have someone who isn't a PT give them a compliment. Like this happens once every 2 months. Some physician or someone outside our profession in a respected profession will say something great about PTs, and then PTs can't wait to chime in on it. I say the same thing. It doesn't go anywhere because it's expected. This goes back to the first thing we talked about. It's a pattern disruption. It's obvious if I say it, right? You give your wife a compliment and she says, oh my gosh, thank you. But someone walking down the street does it. And next thing you know, it means something a little bit different when someone from the outside gives that compliment. Let me ask you this though. Has it jumped the shark? Like, have we hit the point of like market saturation where like people understand what's behind the curtain, that they're just sort of tired of it? Or is it humans having conversation at scale and that doesn't really ever jump the shark?
Meaning, does the public know what we offer? Is that what you're kind of saying?
No, sorry, bad question. So I got a bad answer. Better question. Have we reached saturation where hosting a podcast and just talking about ourselves all the time has reached its like market saturation point?
Well, I mean, I think any show or podcast should be talking about some topic or talking about the person that they're interviewing or talking with. That's how the other side benefits. Even the Joe Rogan show, like he's talking to the guests, like he's not always, sometimes he'll, like, I haven't listened to it in a while, but sometimes he'll talk about his archery or his MMA or Brazilian jiu-jitsu or whatever. And you maybe intertwine that like as you go, but it's what benefits the other side or what benefits the audience. How can they learn something new? Yeah. How can they learn something new? What's some insight, some help, something that they didn't know existed, or help or education or some insight or some benefit, some nugget that they get?
Yeah, I think that's the main thing, is just sharing that different perspective. I mean, look how long Oprah had her show. Look how long network TV has been around. You know, we're not even scratching the surface, let alone jump the shark. And I used jump the shark yesterday with my wife. I haven't said that quote. I don't think most of the people watching even know what we are referencing when we say that.
If you know what jump the shark means, I'd like you to do it. Just give me a thumbs up explainer in the comments that you get the inside joke. All right. All right. To sum it up, I really think you need to sit down and pay attention and understand who you're creating content for, what things they care about, and then how you're going to actually approach that. I think being thoughtful in not doing social media, but creating media that's social this is an ounce of prevention, pound of cure. This is an ounce of preparation could lead to a pound of result, instead of just sort of flinging things online, which maybe worked 10 years ago. And that was like quantity over quality. That doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work in your favor anymore. So being thoughtful is probably the better way to go.
So real quick, before we jump over to pricing again, before I got interrupted, what I was saying was, I think a big element is we all have a verifiable history of doing stuff. We're not just saying this stuff to get the public riled and get views. Like when I talk about, having 6 patients come through my clinic an hour, doing 1 unit treatment for each of those 6 patients. Like I am literally doing that. I can show you examples of people in my clinic. And yesterday, I don't know why I didn't think of this. One of my patients who comes 5 days a week was like, yeah, I said, well, I'll see you on Wednesday. He was like, no, I'll be in tomorrow. He's like, oh, that's right. Like, why didn't I ask this guy on camera why you're coming 5 days in a row? So he can tell other therapists who think there's no geriatrics who would drive to your clinic 5 days in a row. Absolutely there are, and they love it and they appreciate it. And this is part of their social and part of all of the things that make therapy great. So we have real world examples that we can share behind the posts and the comments and the things that we put out there.
All right, so let's switch over to pricing, which feels like cost pricing, or the first time somebody ever pointed this out and said reimbursement instead of being paid. I was like, oh my gosh, why do we say reimbursement in healthcare versus getting paid? It's almost like a dirty word. Why is this topic important?
Dave?
Well, I mean, it's important because a couple of things. One is that's how you pay all your bills. That's how you kind of have the other side of the value equation. Like you do all this stuff. We do all this, great stuff. I believe we help patients naturally, and Tony, all that, like educating them and guiding them and easing their stress and their overwhelm and coaching them and all that type of stuff. And, we get paid X amount for that. We're going to talk about pricing, but like the one caveat is that, and Tony can correct me, but like if you have in-network clinics, like in-network practices, like this pricing sheet, this menu is pretty fixed. It's, if anything, it's decreasing, but when we talk about pricing, and the one example that I sent to you guys, we can get into, but like there's companies that can change pricing, and usually it's going to be increasing pricing. In healthcare, we can't really do it unless the person, the patient, the client, the beneficiary, whatever, is paying out of pocket. So just a little bit of an intro before we dive in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I disagree. Not surprisingly. It goes back to like, we have to understand the language you're using. We have to understand what it is the insurance company is buying. You are correct in the sense that I can't change the price of a CPT code with the insurance company. I agree to their contract. That's what I'm going to deliver. But I need to understand what is the definition of that CPT code. What does that CPT code mean that they are purchasing from me? And then what other services that they're not purchasing that my patient might want to purchase is available for me to sell. And that is where the difference in pricing. And, Jimmy, I'd like to hear your perspective when you said, why are we calling it reimbursement? I'll tell you why it's reimbursement, but what do you mean by that statement?
Yeah, it almost like took away, because I came as a second career, right? So when I sold an advertising campaign, you paid for it, right? I did it, then you paid me. Or you paid me, it didn't really matter. You still paid me. I understand reimbursement is I do something and then you pay me back for that. But it almost sounds like when someone said I need to be reimbursed, my first thought is I need to be made whole. I need to be brought back to even. Where in healthcare, reimbursement is like I did something, now you pay me for that. And not just, hey, we both went to the movies, but I didn't have my wallet, so you're going to reimburse me for this. I'm going to reimburse you for the stuff that you paid for me. It sounded very jarring to me.
Well,
in my opinion, it's the same as what you just described, Jimmy, but let's hear what Tony says.
No, I think this all goes back to the language we use. Once again, like as clinicians coming out of school, we're so ignorant to the whole world. I'm not saying school should teach us this, but we should make it our own responsibility to learn this. Like the reality is, when the practice owner, I pay my staff to deliver a physical therapy treatment, I am loaning that money to the insurance company. I am paying my team to deliver that service. And then the insurance company is reimbursing me for the money I put out plus interest. So I'm effectively a bank. And Seth Godin has a great kind of talk about this, where he says, the better you understand the time value of money, the better you understand profitability. Like, I am in the lending business. I am not a physical therapy clinic. I am loaning money out to the physical therapist working for me, to the insurance company. They're reimbursing me with interest. That interest is my profit margin. But we are so stuck in this idea. We don't understand money and time value of money and how money works. We don't even understand the language around money. The fact that I shared a post a while back saying, if you could deliver a service and get paid the same day, Luna Physical Therapy pays therapists the same day. They guarantee that payment. That payment's never leaving you. Once you get paid, you are paid. Compared to me, I'm not getting paid for 30, 60, 90 days.
Yeah.
I need more money coming in than I'm putting out, whereas it's worth it to get paid the same day with Luna because I can put that capital to work tomorrow. These are things that nobody talks about and half the people don't understand.
Mm.
So since we're talking about pricing, this would flow into pricing. So if you're going to pay me up front for a package, and I know Dave doesn't like selling packages and I don't like selling packages, but if you're going to pay me up front, I'm getting $3,600 today instead of waiting 3 months to get $3,600. That is more valuable. You know, I can turn that 3,600 over. I could do things with it. I can put it into other assets. There's value to that, which I don't think we appropriately think about when we're looking at the difference between getting paid for everything up front versus charging on the back end.
And actually, I just did a debate episode on my show coming out soon with with Jordan Mather and Ben Boggy of Clinical Marketer. And my whole stance was, it was about packages. The whole episode was about packages. And I was saying, here's why packages, this is why we do per visit and we don't sell packages. And they gave great examples as to why packages make sense. And the one thing you just said is that Ben Boggy with his practice, ProKinetics, he's got like 3 locations. They do packages. They do a paid evaluation, and then the therapist presents a package based off of the timeline or what it's going to take for the therapy to, totally help the patient, get them better and all that. So yes, he then deploys that money. He reinvests that capital into Facebook ads on the patient marketing side of things, as well as ads for recruiting and anything, else in between, but mostly around generating both sides of the demand, getting new patients and getting new therapists as he grows. And so you're right, that is starkly different, getting $2,000 or $3,000 or whatever $1,000 up front, or maybe it's a third of it or a quarter of it, and then the rest is like a payment plan. That is very different compared to an in-network practice, or even some of the out-of-network insurances that we've built over the years, where we have to wait 30, 60, 90, 120 days for some of this out-of-network reimbursement. And then, yes, those per visit rates are higher than in-network, but it's like we've had to wait for it. And I agree, Tony, there's not enough therapists and practice owners talking about the cost of money, talking about what of the dollar amount that you're going to get reimbursed in 30, 60, 90, 120 days. Like, there is a cost of not having that money come through your practice, not having it being available to pay bills, to reinvest for Facebook ads, Google ads, whatever it might be. So there is a huge component of navigating that. And that is one of the biggest challenges for in-network practices, as the margins are decreasing and you have to continue to try to operate, whether you have this large overhead and there's all these components to it. So it's not easy by any means. So I don't want to dismiss that.
Jimmy?
Yeah, there's also another side to this, which I think you alluded to in our group chat, which was like pricing strategy, right? Because a lot of times you'll say, well, I want to be the cheapest so I can get more, but then you have to do more to make up for the fact that you're charging less. And I think the story had something to do with a Ferrari and yachts, right? That was like a good positioning or anchoring strategy, which I don't think enough PTs do well enough. And I can fill in why after you tell the Ferrari yacht story, but it's because in my opinion, it's because we're trying to sell physical therapy, not an outcome.
Yeah. So Rory Sutherland is
Brilliant.
just a genius marketer. I watch everything that he puts out. He was talking about selling Ferraris, selling Lamborghinis, high-end cars. He said, if you're trying to sell a Ferrari next to a Lamborghini, it's going to be hard. But then when you start selling Ferraris next to a $2 million yacht, $25 million airplane, all of a sudden the Ferrari is like a stick of gum at a checkout line at the grocery store. It's no big deal. And it's all about price anchoring. Now, Dave knows price anchoring. I know we've talked about this before. Even if you never sell a high ticket package, but having that high ticket package on your website or available so that somebody can see, this is $25,000. I'm getting an incredible deal at $2,500. I'm going to choose that one versus the $250 self-paced video course. Having that price anchor is super powerful. We've heard the guy from the Future podcast talk about it. Everybody talks about it. Yep. But one of the things that I was looking at was, again, context. Like, to Jimmy's point, what are we selling? Are we selling a CPT code? A CPT code is whoever can sell it the cheapest wins, which is fine. I'm in that world. I'm in that business. I'm not against that business. But I've been sharing my Clarity calls. So I got back on Clarity. I started promoting my Clarity profile. I showed how somebody was paying, I think they booked a 16-minute call, which doesn't sound like much, but it was like $85 for me to answer a couple questions. No massage, no manual therapy, no red light therapy, like no cupping, none of that stuff. They wanted an answer. They wanted a little peace of mind. And then after paying me the 80 whatever dollars for 16 minutes, they thanked me for the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
Like there's
without you asking for the review.
Right.
Yeah, nothing. Like I felt guilty, but not guilty enough not to do it. And so it's just the context of it is so impactful.
Well, so let's not skip over something, because if this is the first time someone's hearing about like positioning and anchoring, like there's a road in northern New Jersey that has just car dealers on it, right? And you can see where the really high end ones are. They're at the top of the hill, and they are the most lit. If you drive,
Route 9.
Yeah. And if you drive, and they have like a McLaren dealership or something wild like that.
Yeah.
And they are the most lit. Tesla, right? It's all there. They're all positioned next to each other, and it seems ridiculous. So those things are crazy amounts of money. Like I don't even bother looking at a McLaren, how much that even costs, because if you got to ask, you can't afford it. I can't afford it. But the idea here is picking up a McLaren, if I could afford it, would still be a pretty big investment, right? But by selling a McLaren F1 at a yacht show, it's now like a pack of gum as you're walking out of the supermarket. So you did a couple different things. You put yourself in a different audience completely, where to them, a McLaren, it's an afterthought, or might just be, that would be nice because it's the same color of my yacht, which would probably be a good move if you sell McLarens, is match the colors of the yachts. Now you have a matching set. But it also puts it in context in terms of pricing. If you're looking at $2 million yachts, $150,000 car, I mean, I might make that as an impulse buy. So how can we use, because it was brilliant. They found out by putting McLarens next to Lamborghinis and Ferraris was harder to sell. You sold some because, hey, I'm in the market for a super luxurious sports car. But by putting it next to yachts, it doesn't make any sense until it's brilliant. What's the healthcare PT equivalent of doing that?
I'll tell you what the wrong way to do it is. So what I see all over social media is, look, a total knee replacement's $50,000. You can come to physical therapy for under $1,000. That's not.
Why is that wrong?
Not the same.
Why is that wrong? I agree, but why do you think that's wrong?
Because in the consumer's mind, they're not paying $50,000. I asked this question in my Facebook group. It's got 15,000 members and a total knee replacement support group. I asked this question about 3 times a year. How much did you pay for your total knee replacement? Most of them, it's $0. Some of them, it might be a couple hundred. Occasionally, somebody paid $1,000. But to them, they paid $0. It was free. Check it out. I got a brand new. They cut my leg off and sewed it back on, and it was totally free.
Yep. They didn't have to do anything. There was no effort.
Right. Whereas therapy, now it's $50 copay, 10, 20, 30 visits. You got to come in. You got to work out. You got to sweat. The therapist is going to make you do things that make you feel uncomfortable.
And maybe I'll get that result. Right. I'll go one step further. And I'll preface this by saying I've given them money before. I support their mission and I want them to be better. But the PT PAC, the Physical Therapy Political Action Committee, again, love your work, right? You wear the red coats at CSM and you raise money to advocate for PT. I want that done, but I don't want to do it. So I'll give you money. Here's their strategy. Well, if every new grad or if every PT student just gave up the equivalent of a Starbucks a day, we would be the most funded lobby in Washington, D.C. We'd get so much done. Now, that feels very similar because you're definitely asking me to give up this thing that I like to maybe sort of get this thing that I don't. So it feels like that's the wrong message. And I've said this to them before, and I said, I'm not giving you any money until you change your marketing, because I don't think it's going to go anywhere and it feels like a waste of my money. So I think there are a couple examples of the knee replacement or the give up the Starbucks to get something is just a bad framing job.
Dave, you were going to say something.
So with price anchoring, right? So like one way that we do it is that we say, all right, Mary, you're in-home physical therapy with us. It would be, we want to have them ask out of pocket, like how much is it, right? We have to get to that point in the call. And then we say, well, it's $500 per visit on Saturdays and Sundays, and it's $300 per visit on Monday through Friday. And as we say that, sometimes the caller will cut in and say, well, I don't need weekends. So, so like already we price anchored them higher. Now, some people were like, yeah, Saturday and Sundays are great. And we're like, wow, like it's crazy. Like I still can't even believe people pay $500 a visit for even a weekend visit. But anyway, that's one way. Another way would be like, all right, Mary, so you looked on our website and you mentioned that you were interested in this stroke success program that we have. Well, here's the thing. We do an evaluation. Right now, the total program is not available to new clients. They have to be existing clients. So the program, and I'm making this up right now, so you call it $10,000 or something big. But in that package, in that stroke success program, we take our clients and we make a plan of all the things that they want to get back to. So it could be the theater, museums, Central Park, whatever it is, going to the airport, going into the subway, but probably not with our clientele, but going in and out of taxis and Ubers and Lyfts, and going to whatever sites and places in the city, or going to Long Island, Hamptons, Westchester, whatever it might be. So we take our clients, we actually go with them. We can, like Tony's done, we go with them to doctor's appointments if they want, whatever the plan is. And, that's an investment of $10,000, but that's not available for you right now. So again, you could use the 10K as the price anchor. And then now whatever you guys want to do, 250, 300, whatever, wherever you're at, $125 for an evaluation, whatever the dollar amount is for someone who's out of pocket. Now that sounds like an amazing deal to interact with a practice that has this and offers this, and obviously signals that other people could or have paid for it. That's one way that we've used some of these price anchoring techniques with pricing, like in the whole pricing strategy. And that's the thing that a lot of these insurance practices don't migrate to. They don't adopt or use. And that's the difference between the flexibility of having out of pocket. You can raise your rates at any time. Like right now, I could raise my rates to the next caller or all the next callers next month, next year, whatever. And a lot of insurance practices either have to do cash pay services or they have to drop insurances because, again, they're not increasing their insurance rates at this time or ever.
Does this work? What I just put on the screen, the tweet is, you're debating whether to offer 10% off for a $50 product while a Hermes bag, did I say that right?
Yes.
A Hermes bag sold for $2 million. I'll let you in on a secret. Higher prices can drive higher demand. If, and there's a big if it's done right. How?
Big if.
Big if. Now, does that work? I've seen some people do it. But do the people that this works for, do they understand what business they're actually in? Right? Because if you're in the over-serving an insurance company, that won't work. They don't care, right? Someone was circulating a question the other day. What will we have to show insurance companies? This person was specifically trying to get paid more if you had like advanced certifications, like an OCS, an NCS, an SCS. What will we have to show them? And my response, I'm sort of
doesn't matter. It's not happening.
Nothing. It's never happening. Well, we can show better outcomes. Doesn't matter. Won't matter. You're pitching to the wrong audience. So my question is, if someone understands this, where would this work? This has to only work when the person that understands your value is the one controlling the money exchange. So if you're going direct to consumer, this could work. If you're not, this will never work.
Yeah, but I would say you can layer direct to consumer on top of the back of an insurance company, and so with this new treadmill that we're getting, and I'll share this with anybody who wants to see it. Part of our objective with this is to show how we can use this on the back of insurance referrals And one of the plans was we want to have a $3,600 offer to say, look, so with this treadmill, you have to have a harness and you have to do all this kind of fancy stuff. And there's a lot of theater behind this experience, but this is a theater that I can be comfortable with personally. So what we're doing is the treadmill's coming today. We're going to develop a $3,600 offer for patients who have had total knee replacements, who want to get back to best possible walking, normalized walking, whatever, travel, leisure, like that kind of stuff. None of that is covered by insurance. There will be elements that are covered, but one of the aspects in this conversation is, hey, you literally just got a free $50,000 knee replacement put in. It's like you got a free minivan, and now you're going to invest $3,600 to get that minivan working the best it's ever going to work, you know? And so there are different things we're going to test. I have no idea what's going to work, but the idea is I do plan to build all of this self-pay stuff on the back of an insurance-based referral.
But that's icky. That's icky, Tony. That's selling something to someone. I mean, I talked to a practice owner, and they had a beautiful clinic with a lot of square footage. And I sat in their clinic. This is 2-3 years ago. I sat in their clinic while they suggested products. And I said, why wouldn't you, if you actually suggest those, why wouldn't you have those in inventory and mark it up 20%? They're like, well, we don't do that. So you don't make the 20%. If you don't give me a chance to give you money, it's not flying out of your pocket. And keep in mind, like, this is where it starts to feel icky. If you offer me something better, and there's really only 3 things you can offer, right? We can go to that value pyramid that I always throw up online, but it's, can you do it better, faster, or cheaper? We love to focus on this cheaper. And I think the better and faster is the way to go. Is Dave going to show up to my house? That feels like faster because I don't have to do it. Also feels like concierge, which is why it's the first name in his company, right? It feels like it's better. Dave's not running around. Dave's not, the discount. He's not Aldi, but there's a market for that. There is. There's a smaller market for faster and better, but that makes it a higher market. People are willing to pay more if you understand what problems you're actually solving people.
Great point. And I hope I'm wrong here, but Tony's current clientele that is used to using their insurance, and just the example of they get a free minivan, and here's a thing to make the minivan like optimal, soup it up, like all that. I hope I'm wrong, but I cannot imagine that clientele paying $3,600 out of pocket for a Biodex program. I hope I'm wrong.
Wait, are you?
Those are not buyers or spenders of an extension of a health and wellness component of that dollar amount. Maybe the Biodex will be so big and grand, and Tony can kind of frame it and position it and wrap it in a way that is an irresistible offer for them. And I hope so. And I would love to hear it. I'm sure he's going to make content about it. But the folks that come in that are using all their in-network insurances, they're not paying out of pocket for Tony's aftercare program. They're not paying out of pocket for anything else related to their health and wellness. And magically, Tony, you think that they're going to pay $3,600? I don't see it happening. I hope it does, though.
Jimmy, go ahead, and then I want to respond.
I was going to say, how are you going to frame it? Is it going to be, tell me how, like, explain it to me. I just had a knee replacement. Like, what is this? What do I get out of it?
Dave, you're right. It's not for my existing clientele.
Okay, there we go. Perfect.
100%. I am not marketing it to the people that have been with me for 20 years. This is either going to be targeted toward patients who have had a knee replacement. They've been through all the rehab. They're frustrated. They're desperate. They want to travel. They want to play pickleball, and they just can't do it. And conventional therapy hasn't gotten them there. That's one target demographic. And then the other target demographic is the patient that is so terrified, so fearful. They're desperately seeking something. They've heard all these horror stories about going to the hospital-based PT and the therapist pushing their knee too hard and making them worse than they were. Those are the two clients that I'm marketing to. And of course, if we go the targeted ad route, if we go YouTube video route, I am going to be talking to an affluent community. I am not going to be talking to the person who's struggling to put food on the table. So yes, this is going to be sold and positioned as a luxury, a premium, nice to have that I want to buy, and it's worth the money. Not I'm desperate and I need it, but I don't have the money to pay for it.
And how many hours or visits or whatever would someone need or get with this $3,600 package?
So,
I'm asking you specifically because if you're doing YouTube stuff, then are you going to be having people fly in and they're going to have to stay for an extended period of time, or is this only for the local community? So what would they potentially get with this package?
For the typical patient that I'm expecting to do something like this, it's only local people. I still love open door, unlimited access policy. So to me, I'm thinking here's my real thought. 3 months, unlimited access. It is not physical therapy. It's access to the equipment. You will have somebody to gear you up because you need to have the harness and everything. So there's an expense I'm incurring with that. But outside of that, you're on your own. And what I expect to happen is they're super compliant from month number 1. They're coming in every day. They're motivated. They're excited. They start feeling better in month number 2. They start to miss a couple sessions. And then by month number 3, they're done. Like they don't even want to come in anymore. They're living their life. They're playing golf. They're playing pickleball. They're doing all the things they want to do. But it's sold as 3 months, 12 weeks, unlimited access. We are going to get you, to your goal.
So that's like $75 a visit if you do it 3 times a week for 3 months.
Yeah, whatever I don't know. I haven't done the math.
Now, what happens if you sell several of these and then you have 2 or 3 people that show up for the same time slot to use it? Like, are you going to have it scheduled out like time slots?
Yeah. It's what we do right now for our wellness stuff. They're still booking. There's still appointments. It's automated like that. We have a limited access. You can come in at certain times. So to Scott's point, if it works, could be considered a franchise opportunity. What I really want to do and what Cybex is helping me work on is basically making this a business in a box, making this a model with proof of concept so that other therapists, but guess what? Other personal trainers, other LMTs, other individuals who want to step into the balance and recovery space, who don't even have to be a physical therapist, could purchase this kind of equipment and roll this out within their business. That's the deeper layer of what we're trying to do with this.
So I'm now playing the advocate or the devil's advocate of the part of the audience is like, this feels icky. This is gross, right? Because I feel like what you're offering can sometimes get lumped in with, and I don't want to name any treatment, but a treatment that might not have any scientific backing, and people would lump it in with snake oil. It feels like people conflate the two. Like people will say, look, you're selling access to a treadmill, just throw that in. But you're selling access. That's what you're selling. You went in front of, just like if the guy who renovates my bathroom is like, I'm going to need to use this tool that I invested this much money on your bathroom because it needs that. I sort of understand I need to pay more because he needed to pay more. I'm getting more. I'm getting a better thing in the end. So I don't want to conflate the two. I want to make sure people understand that Tony is selling access to a tool to get a better outcome that has some science behind it, right? I think a lot of physical therapists, because we have this Peace Corps gene, look at it and they go, oh, you're just selling this is another flim flam. And I think we need to stop doing that as a profession because I see it happen a lot.
Yeah, I agree. We're over time. How do you guys wrap up?
What do you got, Dave? Parting shots. I still like the approach of a polarizing media approach, and you can use it. Like we're using it a little bit differently, I think, like on the therapist side of things, or practice owner side of things. But you can certainly use this as a practice owner in regards to attracting your ideal clientele and repelling your clientele who you don't want to work with or would not be the right fit for your offering. So that's my parting shot. How about you guys?
Last year, Jimmy did party with a purpose. I'm going to use the term inflammation with a purpose. We're intentionally inflaming the social media feed with the purpose of motivating people to think differently.
Yeah, it's supposed to be media that's social. I would end with, since you guys sort of covered two emotions there, I'm going to go with thoughtfulness, which is, why are you doing the thing? Is it because of you? It's not going to go anywhere. It probably is not going to resonate. If you're doing it for someone else to educate, excite, entertain, infuriate, right, for good reasons, it starts with thoughtfulness. These things don't happen by accident. So ask yourself before you push post, or even before you start to write, what's the purpose of that? Who are you trying to help? We'll be back on Thursday. Subscribe to the Dave Kittle Show and Tony's Medicare billing. You have another cohort going on right now?
Yeah, every month we do a new cohort. Starts the first Tuesday of every month.
And what do I get out of that if I jump in? What is the
nine live training modules. I teach them live every month. We update it with new information, new context. I'm going to try to do something a little bit different for October and November, so I'll share that information later.
All right, we'll be back on Thursday. Subscribe, let us know if this was good topics, or if there's anything that is bothering you, or you'd want us to go a little bit deeper in. We'll see you guys on Thursday.